Welcome to the Path Forward podcast. I'm Augie Gillarducci, your host. This is brought to you by U-Turn Health and Second Opportunity. And today I have the pleasure of bringing on Jeffrey Abramowitz, who is somebody that I've come to know since being released from prison. We've met in person a number of times at different conferences. He was kind enough to spend some time with me as I was starting to get into the work that we do as Second Opportunity, to give me a number of hours of his time to do a Zoom call and kind of educate me on some of the finer points of things that we needed to get done. I think he has a great story. I think he's a great guy, first of all, and I see him in these different venues, and he's always answering questions, helping people however he can. But he is now the CEO of an outstanding organization that he's going to talk about, and continuing to help men and women on the inside. And really, his lane, from what I observe, his lane is having to do with education. And education is being one of the keys for people to be able to get out, get on with their lives, and not turn back. So, Jeff, thanks for joining me today.
Augie, it's great to be here. I've been looking forward to this for all day long because anytime I get to see you and get to talk to you, and congratulations on your work and this great podcast.
Well, thank you for that. So, Jeff, in addition to the work that he's doing, he's got a story that our audience will relate to, or our main audience, and that's the men and women that are currently or formerly incarcerated. But I like to ask you to start out in just a few minutes about your background, where you grew up, what you did when you were younger, things that you enjoyed, that type of thing.
Yeah, so what a softball. I love it. So my name's Jeff Abramowitz. I grew up in Philadelphia, born and bred in Philly. Always was excited about all our Philadelphia sports teams, and then went to college at Ohio State and law school in Michigan. And it was there that I found my passion for law. But I'm born and bred in Philadelphia. Was married. I just got remarried recently. I have a wonderful daughter, 30 years old, and yeah, my life is full of passion and purpose today.
That's terrific. So, like many of us, as you were a practicing lawyer, and you were a trial lawyer, weren't you?
Yeah, I was a trial lawyer for a little over 20 years and a senior partner in a law firm in Philadelphia, practiced in Philadelphia and New Jersey, and also before the US Supreme Court in Washington.
And I've seen some of Jeff's presentation, just for the audience. And so he makes presentations about the work that he's doing, and different things related to education. And I think that he, the trial lawyer comes out because you're very persuasive as you go through the slides and talk about those things that you think will bring impact to the population. But at some point, there's something that came up that caused your life to take a dramatic turn, I think, right?
I think it was a series of really bad choices. And I'm really intentional about that because, part of the journey is understanding the lessons that came from it. And I don't think we give enough um, self responsibility to our actions. And I'll explain more. So I did. I made some poor choices in life that handed me a federal indictment on a financial crime that I actually accepted responsibility for even before it really happened. I knew I had made a bad choice, and I use the word choices intentionally because I don't think they're mistakes. I think everyone in this world makes choices and they don't work out so well. And Einstein has a great line. He says, if you make 10 bad choices a day, you're just not trying hard enough. And that's because that's how we learn. We do things, we may not do them so well, and then we do them better the next time around. And in life, that's what it's all about. Unfortunately, the choices that I made landed me in a federal courtroom in March of 2012, where I was in a packed courtroom with family, friends, and colleagues, and people that I work with, and other judges. And I took responsibility for those choices and was sentenced to 5 years in a federal prison.
And one of the things we learned that we have in common is that when you were in prison, you spent a lot of time working in the or teaching courses and being involved in the education department, right?
So it's so crazy. It actually started my very first day in prison. I was taken right from the courtroom when I was incarcerated. I was brought right into general population the next day. And I woke up the first morning and, being the first day in prison, like, you don't know what's going to happen. And I looked out my cell and I see there's a line of men standing there with all their papers. And it's because, I was a lawyer and they thought the law firm was now open inside of the prison. And I kind of set them straight right away on that part of it. But the second thing that happened was I was tasked almost immediately with helping other people that were studying for their GED or they're working to academically to do something. And I started immediately tutoring, like within the first few days of tutoring in the facility that I was in, and then was eventually transferred to another facility where the education department just was non-existent, and I ended up teaching over 60 classes while I was away in everything from math and reading and GED to current events classes I would run. And I ran a class on CDL operation. Now, Augie, I had never been in the cab of a tractor trailer before, but I'm teaching a CDL class. And because what I learned was that most of the men that I was with, they were great at driving a truck. They could figure that part out, but passing the darn test like required reading and some math, and they just couldn't do it. So we really centered on, well, how do you pass the test? And did a class on that. And for me, it was a learning experience. Like, this was all not just about me teaching. It was equally about me learning. And it was my classroom. It was my university, the University of Prison, where I learned about people and I learned about the importance of, um, you know, self responsibility, but also understanding that you could make change happen along the way. So education was where I kind of got my feet wet inside, like running these programs and teaching. But I also read 1,000 books while I was away. I read every Bible I can. I participated in every religious service that was available. I was doing things with my brethren that were, Christian. And I'm Jewish, Christian friends, and I also went to call to prayer with my Muslim friends. And like, wanted to learn from everyone that was there because they all had something special that they brought to the table. And I even learned how to operate a forklift and a backhoe and work in a commercial kitchen and, do crazy things like change oil in a car. Things that, a white Jewish lawyer often never experiences in their lifetime. I was going for it. So, yeah, so my journey inside was this huge life lesson that I kept growing, and so many experiences inside. Invaluable. It was when I came home, I think, that education really began to go into high gear, because I came home and I'm a proud person. So I went into a homeless shelter and lived there for a year, a little over a year, as I figured out what my next move was going to be. And part of that, my next move was teaching GED math in the heart of North Philadelphia for $7 an hour. And it was my first real teaching opportunity. Within months, I became a director of workforce development at this adult literacy agency in Philadelphia, which is now the largest adult literacy agency beyond literacy in Philly. But I got my feet wet right there in the heart of a really challenging area. But it was in the halfway house setting that I began to understand the challenges people have coming home, and really that connection importance to education. Look, the halfway house setting in our country is really broken. Where I was, getting a decent meal was a challenge every day. Getting toilet paper to wipe my ass was a challenge every day. Navigating people that were overdosing around me was a challenge. But I found that if I could give guys, the men that I was with, some guidance to where they could get some support, whether it's education, learning how to read and write better, or getting digital literacy skills, learning how to use a computer, then those were things that were game changers that could really direct people and give them a place where they could start moving forward and not back. So I lived in the halfway house shelter, became a director at a Title II adult literacy agency, and then a few years later took a job at Jeff's Human Services, which is a really large workforce agency in Philadelphia. If you're familiar with the American One Stops, or career one stops. They operated the ones in Philadelphia, and I became an executive director overseeing all the justice programming at Jev's, which is again an $800 million nonprofit, just a huge organization, and began again to understand the integration of education and workforce and how important that was, especially as people began to come home. The day that I got the job with Jev's, that same morning, I got a call from the Coalition on Adult Basic Education, COABE, and they asked me to start the Prison Literacy Committee across the country. And that began to really snowball the work I would be doing nationally, and moved up to become secretary of COABE's board of directors. So COABE is the adult education advocacy arm in our country, for funding, for legislation, and I it's a huge organization, amazing group of people, all educators in the adult education field, and became secretary of their board, and then transitioned to public policy chair where I am now, and then started doing reentry programming and helping people coming home and meeting basic needs and starting new programs, which I'm really proud of. And then eventually moved here to the Petey Greene program as CEO about a year and a half ago. Before that, I did do, I'm really proud of this, but I was selected by the U.S. Department of Education as a subject matter expert, and I oversee several projects for the U.S. Department of Ed, including the Correctional Reentry Community for Links, which is their national platform for the Department of Ed in Washington, and oversee and moderate that platform for them for the correctional education community and reentry community. And yeah, it's been a crazy ride, Og. It's been wonderful, but I'll tell you, I've landed in a place where I'm just so happy because it's the center of my world is education, adult education, workforce development, and criminal justice. And here at the PD Green program, man, you want to talk about how you make change happen. We are a nonprofit that is 15 years young, founded at Princeton University, and we are the heart of helping people get smarter. So we use college students, we train them and skill them, and then we bring them inside of prisons and jails and work with people as they come home to get them smarter. Whether it's math, reading, your journey getting you ready for college, getting career certifications, and helping people be able to pass those career certification tests, digital literacy, financial literacy. Those are all career preparedness. These are all part of um, that one-on-one support that we're really super good at in helping people reach their goals in life as they come home.
Wow. So let me, I want to back up on one thing, well, number of things, but first of all, Jevs. So you had mentioned the career stop, and they're known by different things in different states, but I'm in facilities all the time. I was in a place yesterday, I was in a place today, and I'll ask people, are you familiar with what these places can do and how they operate as far as like the American Job Centers, some are called, and what have you. So will you take a few minutes and explain to those who are watching this? Because overwhelmingly what I hear is they don't know what I'm talking about. They've never heard of them. And if somebody is getting out of incarceration and they need a job, this is probably the first door they should knock on, right? So will you explain what that process is and how they can avail themselves to these places if they're not in Philadelphia, if they happen to be in Idaho or California or whatever, but and what they can ask of these people to help them to get employed?
Yeah, so and I'll give you a story around that as well. But every state in our country has, through the Department of Labor, the U.S. Department of Labor, they're mandated to have these career one stops. They're called American Job Centers, Career Links, Career One Stops, and these are agencies that work with people that are unemployed or underemployed to help them get jobs. And for the longest time, Career Links or Career One Stops or American Job Centers never really centered on any specific population. And that's really changed over the years. And now there are special agents, managers, counselors that work in these Career One Stops to actually help people navigate and get into a job and a career pathway. And they're everywhere. So if you're in any state, you should be able to Google or find your local Career One Stop or American Job Center and know exactly where to go in your community to get support and help finding a job. So when I came home, my halfway house and shelter was about a good hour and a half walk from the career link that I was going to. And I remember the first time I went down there, I was told to sit and wait in the waiting room, and I did. And they said somebody was out to lunch. They get to me. Well, an hour later, no one got to me, and I had to go back because I was only on a 3.5 hour pass where I was, and I had to get back to the shelter because you're given passes for a period of time. And it was but for the grace of God that I even went back to that center. Well, fast forward 4 years, I'm now at Jevs, and one of the centers that I oversee is the Career Link, that Career Link. And one of the first things I did was I brought all of the staff in and I told them that story. I told them how I came in and I was on a limited time, and somebody had me sit there, and I had the ability to express them how important it was when someone walks in your door to service them right away, to triage them, to find out why they're there, how long do they have, what do you need help with. And fortunately, our career one stops across the country, American Job Centers, are doing a far better job now working with people that are justice impacted, that have a criminal background. And these are real target populations. And the reality for that is that there's just more jobs in the country right now than people to fill them. So there are a lot of opportunities that you can have. And when you come home, and if you've been justice impacted, even if you've been unemployed and just have a criminal background, go to your career link, career one stop, American Job Center, whatever it's titled in your state. Go there and let them know what you need. Be really honest and upfront, and especially be transparent about your background, because that will definitely help guide them to make a good fit.
And that's one of the questions I was going to ask is we want to encourage people to be completely transparent about here's my situation and here's so that whoever's working with you has an understanding of what the particular challenges or obstacles might be. And these career one stops, they don't charge, right? They're not charging us anything. They'll help us with some essential things like putting together our resume, that type of thing. Right? Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. They're also connected to reentry resources in their community. They're connected to adult learning centers in your community, and oftentimes colleges. And one of the programs that I had started when I was there, Augie, was a great program. I'm so proud of it. It was called an upskilling class, and it was for people that had just come home that needed help with math and reading, or to get into a trade program. And we would intensively work with those individuals one on one to kind of get them to where they were going, not very far from where I landed here at the Petey Greene program.
So some people have expressed opinions that, maybe what I say is the most important rule of reentry, and they say, well, maybe that's second, but for me, the most important rule of reentry is we have to be willing to ask for help, which means we have to be willing to humble ourselves and to say, "Hey, I on the podcast, I had a gentleman named Kenny, and he was terrific, and he got out during COVID and ended up getting into a program through the local community college, and he's right away said I needed help with math." And I had to ask for it, and they provided me a tutor, and it helped me to get through the program. And now he's got a good job, and he's making a good living, and so on and so forth. And I just want to provide that encouragement to the men and women who are listening to say we have to tell people where we have needs because they're not going to figure it out on their own, right? We need to be able to ask them that. So I want to ask a couple of the things that people ask me that they may find challenging, and any thoughts you have about this. So if somebody gets to the American Job Center and they're employable, they're ready, willing, able to work, and the American Job Center can hook them up with an opportunity for them to get to work. What about certain challenges like transportation? Is there anything that can help with that to be able to get to work until they get that first paycheck or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there are a number of things, and the first thing I would say is in comment to what you've just articulated really well. Is my big theme is the use of three words, which are so hard for people coming home to say, which is I don't know. And if you can get over that, I don't know. Then when you're someplace, you need to be able to step up and say, you know what, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that because people are out there to guide you and to help you through that. And the American Job Centers are there to kind of help facilitate and move that along. There are so many barriers for people coming home. But, my look, I came home, I was working a job for $7 an hour. And that's where you have to understand that it's not going to happen all at once, and that it's a journey. And it also is, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. You're going to be at this for a while, and you have to be thinking about your career path. What's your next step going to be? Really intentional. I knew I couldn't do adult education unless I taught, unless I saw what challenges our students faced in some of the hardest neighborhoods in our country. And I embedded myself into that system so that I could learn. But I was also really transparent with myself and with others, not only about my background, but about the fact that I wanted to learn. I was there, I was a sponge. I've been a sponge since the night that I entered prison. Like, I want to learn, I want to educate myself. And sometimes it's really looking around you, being aware, talking to people, asking a lot of questions, and then building upon that to say, okay, what are my strengths? What are the skills that I bring to the table that bring of value that will get me guided? I totally believe that everyone that's got a criminal background should just be transparent about it, and not to make their story about, you know, I didn't do it, or this is what happened. Make it about the lessons that you learned. And if you can frame your story about, hey, I made some bad choices and here's what I learned from it, that's impactful. If you come in there saying, it wasn't me, it was my Uncle Morty, or I was covering for a cousin, or whatever, that's really not what employers really want to see. They want to know and they want to understand your story and really what value you bring to the table. What is it that's going to make them succeed as an employer, and you as someone who's getting hired. The reality for most employers, it's not just about the hiring piece, it's about, are they going to stay with me? And that's something we all have to keep in mind. I think there should be a test drive for people coming home, that they can test drive their position before they get into it. Look, you don't want to get stuck doing a job. People that love what they do stick with it, and they stay there and they love it and they're going to advance in it. But if you throw somebody in a fast food restaurant just for the sake of doing it, they're going to come to me a few weeks later and say, Mr. A, I'm done. I can't fry another fry or flip another burger. And what am I going to do? So if you're really intentional about where you're going to start and where you'd like to end, and know that there's a continuum there, and take the steps. I never dreamed that when I came home and when I was teaching GED math, that I'd be the CEO of a national nonprofit. Like, I didn't, I knew it was down there. I knew I saw it. It became clearer with everything that I did that this is where I want to go. And to this day, I'm still thinking 5 steps ahead of where I want to be tomorrow, and recognizing some of those challenges that will always stick with you.
And I think that, one of the things I take out of your story and many others that we know and we've come to know is that, there were days, many days where I would lay down at night to go to sleep and think, who's going to hire me? What am I going to do to make a living? How am I going to be able to take care of my responsibilities? And, overwhelming sometimes to think, I was going to get out. I'd be 57 years old. Who's going to take a 57-year-old that has been gone for 13 years, and but there really are some great opportunities. But I also say and believe that we've got to create some of this and make it happen. And the more prepared we can be walking out the door with having a plan, or at least an idea of the first steps we want to take on this journey, knowing I need to get more education, or I want to get into a welding program, or I want to be involved doing something, I think that's certainly the right way to go. Um, but I would like to now dig in on the work that you're currently doing, and kind of, if you would, weave in the importance of GED, so that these doors can open for us related to higher education, or even getting into some of the advanced skill programs. You need to have GED to get in there. So can you talk about first GED, and then kind of transition into Petey Greene, and the specific things that you do, and how you go about deploying these college students to help others?
Yeah, so super great point. So I do think education holds the key to our mass incarceration problem. Like, if we can get people smarter and get them on a career pathway or getting them into college, then that's part of the secret sauce of helping people being successful and living a life that's crime free. And at the Petey Greene program, and I believe this personally, that one-on-one tutoring is one of the best tools that you can have to educate people, for two reasons. So I took my job, number one, because using college students to educate others in math and reading and really helping them get over some of those barriers, is tremendous. But number two is our college students we're actually changing culture. We're getting our college students and volunteers across the country to see and understand the humanity of what happens behind the walls of our prisons and jails and when people come home. And truthfully, education has a really big definition for me. It's not just about math and reading. It's about, being able to use a computer, understanding financial literacy. There's a project I've been working on with the U.S. Department of Education called an integrated education training. Now, most of your audience will never have heard of this, but it is this remarkable tool that's built into our work opportunity, and our laws, that says that it's a model where you put a math teacher teaching fractions in the same classroom as a carpentry teacher teaching carpentry, and you contextualize the learning experience for them and give them some career preparedness on top of it. It's an amazing model for people that are justice impacted. I am not the hugest of fan, so I should preface this, Augie. You know me, I've lost my filter. When I went away, I just now believe that you call it the way you see it. And quite frankly, when it comes to post secondary and getting people into college, there's so small number of people that actually complete college programs today that the opening of the Pell Grant window, as awesome and incredible that is, it's giving people some funding to get through college. The truth is that many, the overwhelming majority of people going through our justice systems today are not going to go to college right away, and they're going to struggle. And just because you give someone a high school diploma doesn't mean that they're ready for college. Like, there's bridge work that has to happen to be successful in understanding all of that. But I want people to understand that there is an alternative to going to college. College and getting a degree is amazing, but actually being a successful truck driver and own your own truck driving company, or being an entrepreneur, or being a head chef somewhere, these are all a plumber. These are all things that today, in today's world, can really give you a sustainable employment that really can drive your passion. And I work with Jeff Henderson, Chef Jeff from Bellagio, and he's got a wonderful reentry program training people to become chefs. And these people are so excited and they're happy and they love what they do. So it's not just about getting your high school diploma, although that is so important because it triggers off a lot of these career certifications that you might be able to get down the road. But there's also a path for you to sometimes think about going back to culinary school and getting a degree, or going to college and getting a hospitality management degree. The world is your oyster when you come home from prison, and education drives that. And if you can get smarter and you can use those resources that are all around you, wow, man, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where change begins to happen, and mass incarceration stops, or at least we get a handle on it. And we also find that communities get stronger and families get stronger and generational poverty starts to go away. So it starts with education. I truly believe that. And I don't think just throwing somebody into a job or is the answer for people coming home, or solving one of their many challenges that they have. This takes a village, and the village starts with education and all those fulfilling meeting those all those basic needs.
Well, as we start to wrap up here, what I like to do at the end is to ask you to just take a couple of minutes and, look into the camera and talk to the men and women on the inside. We're on many, many tablets around the country, and some of those tablets are shared by three, four people. But, you know, uh, kind of what your message is, and certainly you were just talking about some of that, but for the individual, what you've gone through to get to the point that you're at today, what message would you like to leave them with?
So there's two. The first message is, while you're away and while you're inside, don't waste a second. And a lot of times it's really easy for us to get caught up lifting weights, being on the basketball court, hanging out, the track, walking, and don't waste any time. While you're inside, grab some books, get every class taken you can, have those certifications and those career credentials that you can take while you're inside. Get those program certifications so that you've completed them while you're inside, and know that you can do it when you come home. Start thinking about what's it like the second I step out the door. Who am I going to go to? Get a game plan together. Talk to your family. Have them prepared for when you come home. That this is what I like to be doing, and then know that there are tremendous resources out there for you. And then the second thing I'd say to you is to be curious. There's a great line by Walt Whitman. He said, "We should all be curious and not judgmental." And I think in my journey, what's done me really so well is that I've asked a lot of questions. I'm curious. I dig into the answers of why things happened and spend time really thinking about the why and ask a lot of questions. Learn as much as you can so that when you get out, you can use some of those unbelievable lessons that you're getting now, and you're seeing how you can change the system. And don't think that you can't. I sit at tables today nationally from the U.S. Department of Education, U.S. Department of Justice, and at seats all around the country. And Augie will tell you, I travel all over the place talking about my journey and the journey through the criminal justice system. And know that you can do that. You can help make change happen by educating people of the challenges that you face and the lessons that you've learned along the way. Things are starting to change on the outside. People are being more receptive to hiring and retaining and looking for talented people that may just have been in prison or jail, and that's okay today. But find out who those players are, and find out those mentors that will help guide you, like Augie. You see so many people that you help. I've helped thousands and thousands of people over the years, so know that there's help out there, and don't be too proud. Ask for it. Jump out and say, who can help me with this? And then that's where the rubber, again, the rubber meets the road and things will begin to change. And if you can do it through education, wow. I'm proud of those guys that are watching on the tablets. We're working with all the tablet companies now, trying to make sure every tablet has educational support on there so that things like Khan Academy and places where you can go to learn fractions if you need to, or AI and how to use AI when you get out. All these incredible things that are going on the outside. It's going to take some catch up, but take advantage of what you can inside, and don't waste any time. Take that time to really center yourself and begin to move forward.
Jeff, thank you. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your story. Thanks for the work that you're doing and have been doing for since you've gotten out. Um, Inspirational. I think that for people to come out into a shelter after being a successful lawyer for years and so on and so forth, and just keep pushing forward to now. And the great thing about the work that you do is that your passion and your mission is all about helping people. And, I mean, I have to say that in my own way, believe with second opportunity, it's the same thing. And that's a really neat feeling that your success is partly measured in positively impacting others that are in a time where they have some need for some help.
Thanks, Augie. Yeah, just one last thing. If people want to reach out and they want to learn more about the Petey Greene program, we love volunteers that have been justice impacted. Or if you want to get involved in the program, you can go to our website, which is www.peteygreen. It's PETEYGREENE.org. Petey Greene, who used to be a DJ in Washington, D.C. But reach out to us or connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm all over the place, but I'm always looking to help and support people in their journey. And Augie, thank you for giving us some voice today.
And for those that have watched and listened to today's podcast, I appreciate it. I appreciate you. This has been the Path Forward podcast. I'm Augie Ghilarducci, and we look forward to seeing you at our next episode. Thanks for being here.